actually, usually. Oh no, look, it went right
go.
live. Hey, everybody, I'm just waiting for it to stop. This is the TED Show, episode 32. Can you believe that? 32. And I am here with my old friend, Eric Bolvis. Actually, his mom had a great impact on me, and anybody who's a peer advisor from UCF, or anybody who was involved in O-Team or peer advisement at UCF, will know his mom, Ellen Bolvis, and she was part of the peer advisement team. I don't know if you know this, but she actually did not allow me on the team the first time. And then she ran into me at I was working some horrible job on campus, and she ran into me, and later on she told me that was the first time that she felt a connection, and that she had made a mistake, and so they invited me to be on peer advisement.
Very good.
So that's a testament to you. Hey, Althea, can you all let us know if you can hear us? I'm actually not mic'd. Eric is mic'd. So we have a great history, and you were raised by that wonderful woman.
That's true.
So she was a big, huge part of my UCF years, and a huge, thank you, Shirley, and a huge part of so many peer advisors' college years. So we owe her a lot. We love her and Pete, and I just think it's such an awesome thing that you're out there in the world, and that we get to, I get to talk to you today, which is amazing.
That is.
So I know that we've met before in person. I might have had a cocktail or 10. Thank you, Althea. You can hear us. But I've known about you since your mom talked about you back in the 80s and the 90s. So I feel like I've known you.
Well, it's interesting. I think probably the first time we met was over at my parents' house. I'm sure there was something one time where she invited.
She did. She
over.
Had some peer advisement things over there. But what was funny, our mutual friend Sharda.
Yes, that's an interesting turn of events.
She actually said, I work with Eric Bolvis, and I'm like, it can't be that Bolves. It's got to be him. And sure enough, it's him.
Oh, boy.
No, it's okay. You're live. You're joined.
That's good.
This is part of the
I need
organic
to make it
insanity.
Quiet here.
You don't have to be quiet.
That's really strange.
You don't want to hear me 3 times.
Yeah, I know. I was going to try and share this, but
you might be able
there
to
we
at
go.
the end. We'll figure it. See, look at him.
Okay.
I told him he could do whatever he needed to do. But it probably was. We probably had something over at your parents' house. Your mom and Pete used to come to a lot of the awesome events that we had at UCF, but I think she hosted some events at your house.
Yes.
Which would have been 30-ish years ago, which is crazy to me.
That is. That is.
So we met through Sharda. Again, we reconnected through Sharda. Sharda is in the real estate world. Love to have her on the show at some point, because she could just sit there and she'll take a deep breath. I love you, Sharda. And then she's going to talk about all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah. Good stuff, but crazy stuff. And then she's like, you've got to talk to Eric. I think we were working on maybe a deal or something like that. And then we talked about having Eric on the show. And when he told me about the topic, the first thing I thought was, wow, how are we going to make, I haven't told you this, how are we going to make that fit? Because I'm never sure who my audience might be at that moment. But it has recently happened in my life and my friends' lives, and so the big talk is what we want to talk about.
The big talk, yeah.
But let's get to that. But I want them to know a history about you. Tell them what you do. You grew up here.
Yeah, I grew up in, we hit town in '69, so that makes me as old time as you can get.
He was only
here.
1 or 2.
Yeah. Went to Evans High School, went to the University of Central Florida. No, actually went to Valencia, went to Florida, stayed there for law school, came back, and most of my practice over the years has been Social Security disability, bankruptcy, and what I'm getting into more now these days is elder law. And a lot of this was because of all of the help that I gave to my parents. As they were getting older before they passed away, I took on more and more of the responsibilities on a day-to-day basis to make sure that things got done.
Because we don't think about that as we mostly think our parents are nothing's ever going to happen to them. We're not going to have to make the decisions. But elder law has definitely become just such a huge, as we're remaining alive longer. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're alive longer and it's fantastic. It
Right.
just means we're alive longer, and then there are decisions that have to be made. Like I'm dealing with, not me, my wife is really dealing with her mother having to go into rehab because of a fall, and all of the choices that Stacy has to try to make. And we have many friends. Oh, Eileen Winfrey too. Eileen Winfrey, who's a friend of mine. She's a real estate broker. She has her dad and her husband's dad living at their house.
Yeah.
Granddaddy, I think Eileen is 92. That's her husband's dad. And her dad, Opa, is, I'm guessing, 70, 80. He looks amazing. So Steve Bloodsworth says hi, Eric.
Oh, okay, yeah. Hey, Steve.
So...
a high school friend.
High school friend. Oh, that's right.
And he just redid my pool. Did a great job.
Steve's
Good
an
job,
awesome
Steve.
guy. Awesome guy. But it's as we get older, even if we're not my age, which is low 30s, even if you're not my age, we're still having to deal with it or think about it more. Because our parents, again, are living longer. They're dealing with a lot more chronic issues, things that might have sadly killed them 50, 60 years ago.
That's an important point too, because and we're really the first generation that's had to deal with this. This is not new. This is really kind of new, because if you do think about 50 years ago, when Grandma moved into the house, Mom took care of Grandma. Actually, that's what happened with us.
That's awesome.
And back then, if Grandma got sick, she died.
Right.
And fairly quickly. And you didn't see these lingering, long illnesses that would keep people alive for a long time. Now, our medicines and our medicine in general and the technology has gotten to the point where life is extended a lot longer than we're used to. And that happened before we were able to figure out how to care for people that long.
Correct. Because long-term, like for example, having an insurance background, long-term care was such an odd product when it came on to the market, because nobody thought about that. Long-term care, you brought them into the house and they passed away. There wasn't a thought process of having to get them to therapy, having to continue to keep their quality of life up as best as you could, because they just didn't make it that long. So It's fascinating how much it's changed.
Yep. And now also, it used to be that the whole family lived in the same town. So if Mom couldn't take care of Grandma, the aunt would come over.
Correct.
Or someone else in the family. And so there was a pretty complete structure, support system around. Now everyone lives everywhere.
Right.
I mean, literally, my family lives in the four corners of the United States, all over the place. And so that really changes the dynamic of being able to care for people as they get older.
Right. And so that's true, because you feel connected via social media, but when it comes down to it, when you have to take care of your mom, your grandmom, an aunt, I'm using all women, but men too, like Eileen's dealing with,
Yep.
you're not close by. And so there are so many things to consider. Like if you live across country and your mother lives in another part of the world, you have to figure out how to take care of her or set it up so that you don't have to think about it later, or at least you've got some good things in place. And that's sort of what the big talk is about.
That is.
But that, again, it's something new. My kids, and I'll use the joke and then I want to get into the seriousness, my kids are always like, as soon as you're old enough, Daddy, we're going to put you into a home. Which is why I'm never signing anything that my kids put in front of me. But that's such an important thing, because people are retiring earlier or working all the way through. People are having accidents, and then you don't know what to do with them. They still are alive and cognizant, but they've got to have rehabilitation for a much longer period of time. So there's so many different things to consider. So talk about how you created the Big Talk, or that's your verbiage, the Big Talk.
Yeah, the Big Talk is, the idea here is, wind it back, folks. Think about when you were just a kid, maybe not quite a teenager. Mom and Dad sat you down and they had the talk, and it was about the birds and the bees and the facts of life and things like that. And it was a talk you may not have wanted to hear, and one they were probably a little hesitant to give. Now things are reversed. Now it's the parents that need the help or the advice, and the children or close family members who are the ones who are going to be able to help. The change is, the talk is now about mom and dad, you're fine now. And that's great. We love you. We want you to live forever. But you remember Aunt Sally, how quickly she went from being very healthy to being very sick?
Right.
That's what we have to prepare for. While you're still able to make these decisions and think about these things, we need to have a really good talk about who is going to help you. You know, who is going to be the person who's going to be there to help you with your banking, to help you with dealing with the doctors.
Because it's a full, so in my wife's case, it's almost a full-time job on top of her full-time job, because we have to figure out how to get her mom to rehabilitation, how to check on her, how to be a patient advocate for her, how to get her to doctor's appointments, how to make sure she's eating, make sure she's taking her medicine. And it's not because my mother-in-law can't, but she's going through this, and maybe she's not as cognizant of what she would have been even 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and people don't want to face that.
And I'll tell you, that's a very tricky part, because legally, got to put on my lawyer's hat right now. There comes a time where people are no longer legally able to sign documents. And the trick is, when's that going to happen?
Right.
You don't always know when it's going to happen. Right. And it can happen very gradually. And just to give you an example is, when a person, this is the little test that I use, because the definition of competency is very complicated. But the test that I use is, if a person is no longer able to effectively communicate what their desires are, they're no longer legally able to sign documents.
Correct.
Okay?
That makes sense.
So, and if you just think about it that way, you don't have to worry about all the rest of the legal technicalities, which means that if there's anything legal that needs to be signed, like a power of attorney, like a healthcare surrogate, and we'll go over that in a minute, by the way, I'll tell you what those are.
Love it.
If they don't sign it while they legally can, then there's only one person that can help you, and that's a judge in a guardianship case. That's complicated, that's expensive, and you're probably going to have to pay for it.
And you're dealing with everything else, the deteriorating health of your parent, and then you're having to go to court to take care of things, which just adds a million times more stress to it. I mean, the whole experience is stressful, and what I think Eric's going to talk about is how to try to mitigate some of that stress and get ahead of the game rather than dealing with it when you're up to your elbows in it.
Right, and basically and a lot of times people are hesitant to sign legal documents because they think, okay, this is it, this is the end, I'm giving up everything, and I don't have any control over anything anymore. That's a big one. That was big for my dad. You know, he so wanted to be in control. He had Alzheimer's. He wanted to be in control of his life and to be able to do things, because he was always a go-getter. He was always the guy who could fix everything.
Right.
And you know, if anything needed to be done, you'd ask Herb. And it was the point where he was unable to do things and make decisions that was really hard for him to do. So he really didn't like to talk about this before.
And that's heartbreaking for them and you, because you're looking up normally to somebody who's always been the strong one, the provider, the caregiver, and then now they have to face their own mortality at that point, and then they have to face giving up that control. And as a child, even as an adult child, you're not maybe ready to take the control either, because then that's admitting that they're mortal and that eventually there are going to be issues that they can't handle that you have to take care of. So there's a lot of an emotional roller coaster going on. Althea Garner said, my son always said that he put me in a home if I start to drool. My children, you cannot listen to that, that's not true. And Eileen says, yes, there should be a class for the kids on how to deal with parents losing control it's something sad to watch, and she's right, which is why you
Yes.
have the big talk.
Which is why I have the big talk. So the big talk is, you sit down with, and in fact, okay, the holidays are coming up. This is the perfect time because these are the times of the year when people actually get together and talk about it.
Correct.
So the question that you ask is that, okay, mom or dad, if you're not able to get out of the house, jump in the car, drive down to the bank, do all these things, who do you want to do that for you? You're still in control, but you're still the general, you just need a foot soldier to run around and do this stuff for you.
Excellent, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And it's the control that people don't like to give up. And so there's a document, the power of attorney. Okay, everyone's heard of a power of attorney. The trouble is, a regular power of attorney only lasts until a person becomes incompetent. Then it's no longer legally valid.
Wait, so a power of attorney,
A regular power of attorney.
only lasts until the person is no longer competent?
That's right, or able to communicate their
I
wishes.
did not know that. I would have thought the opposite. I thought you got a power of attorney for those instances where they were not competent or could not make their own decisions.
Well, that's where the Florida durable power of attorney comes in. The word durable is really important because by Florida law and most states now, a durable power of attorney lasts until death. So when a person is no longer isn't competent anymore, the person who has the power of attorney can still do things for them. And this can be anything. I mean, and the list is very long. Basically, they can do anything financially, with the hospital, with their banks, sell a car, buy a car.
Negotiate anything on behalf because
Yes.
it's a durable power of attorney.
It's durable. So, if your folks have signed powers of attorney, make sure it's got the word durable on it. Otherwise, you may find yourself having to file a guardianship. So that's a really important distinction.
And we're trying to help you not have to file the guardianship, because then you are getting into the court system, which we all know is not a fun place to be, especially when you're dealing with a parent who has an illness and you're already dealing with the stress of that illness.
Yeah, it's complicated. It costs thousands of dollars, and you have to report back to the judge occasionally. And if you can avoid that, it's best to avoid. The four documents that I like to put together to help people with this, and what I call a elder law portfolio, is the durable power of attorney, a designation of healthcare surrogate. Now, what this is like a power of attorney for healthcare purposes. So once they have signed that, designating that you are the person that the doctors have to talk to if they can't talk, that basically designates
So
that.
and because I don't know, and I'm glad I don't know because I bet people are asking, the durable power of attorney. Why do you have to have both? Why do you have to have the designation of healthcare surrogate and the durable power of attorney?
Because Florida law in this case has set up the healthcare surrogate form specifically for healthcare. Okay. Now, probably, depending upon the wording of it, the durable power of attorney is probably okay.
But they could still fight it if you don't have the designation of healthcare surrogate.
But they're usually 10 pages long, these things.
Gotcha.
And now the designation of healthcare surrogate is usually only 1 page or 2. It's very concise. It is written in language that doctors and hospitals can understand, and that's important. And and that basically, so if someone designates you as the healthcare surrogate, that means if they can't talk, they got to deal with you. The hospital and the doctors can't make any decisions without your input because the person has entrusted you to represent them in those cases.
And doesn't it? And I know we got two other documents to talk about, but isn't that also important? How does it work when you're married? Do you automatically get to be the designee of healthcare surrogate, or isn't it important to have it anyway?
Yeah, and the answer is kinda.
Kinda.
Kinda. That's a
like
legal
a true
term.
Attorney. I love
That's
that.
right. Yeah, I mean, usually the hospitals and the doctors will defer to the next of kin. Okay. However, that's not. It may be that you don't want your spouse to be the healthcare surrogate. I know people who are married to people who just can't handle that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, what if you've never... So we had a friend who's not on. I haven't seen her on yet. She had a situation with her spouse, and they had no designation, and she was forced to make decisions that they hadn't talked about previously.
Yeah.
And isn't that sort of where it comes in on the spousal side? If you're unwilling to talk about it, or you haven't had the talk, or maybe it's just uncomfortable, having the actual designation of that allows them to know what your wishes were or are.
Yes, and in fact, the idea here is at the point where you're signing this designation, you're having that talk. And there's another one that we'll talk about here that talks about maintaining life after viability. But the designation of healthcare surrogate, once it's signed, you give a copy to the doctors, the regular practicing attorneys, the regular doctors, practitioners, and the hospitals. And that's very important. There's another document called a Healthcare Advanced Directives that in a lot of places is referred to as the living will.
Correct.
And I don't like the term living will because it's really not a will. But what it is a statement by the person saying, if the doctors determine that I have absolutely no chance of surviving, like I'm brain dead or something like that, then the hospital is not going to be allowed to leave me connected to machines for the next 20 years. Okay, so that really has to do with end of life and how you are treated during the end of life.
Yes.
And again, these are usually only one-page documents. And at the end, it always defers to the healthcare surrogate. It's saying if there's any question on this, the healthcare surrogate, the person that I have appointed to help me if I can't talk, is the one that the doctors in the hospital have to talk to.
And so what that also does is the thing that no one wants to talk about. And for some reason, I'm just going to reach out there. My screen went like that. And look at all the comments went like that. So I want to make sure you guys can actually see us.
I'm still good here.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
So that's where the determination is made in advance. If I am...
it just went. Look at that.
Up, isn't that funny? So let me know if you guys can see us or can't see us. It looks totally fine on the phone, but for some reason it switched. That is where you have the discussion or you have the directive that if I am hooked up to X, Y, or Z, or if I have no brain activity, then pull the plug, donate my organs, those kinds of things. That's what the Healthcare Advanced Directives is.
Yes.
Okay.
That is right.
Which nobody wants to talk about. See, you're sideways on her phone too, and I can't figure out why. I love it. But we look fine on that.
Look fine on that one over there.
But that's so funny, it just switched. I like that we're sideways. That could be fun in a crazy little way. Hopefully you guys can still hear us.
Yeah, it's as long as you can hear us, that's the thing.
But so yeah, that is nobody wants to talk about that because first of all, that's again having to face your mortality.
Right.
And then people have this funny thing about, oh my God, I don't want to give away my kidney, and they're picturing it as if they're alive rather than they're passed. And that's why the Healthcare Advanced Directive is so important, because the last thing you want is for your family to have to make that decision.
That's right.
To talk about that.
Part of this is,
and I'm not Mike, so I'm going to go look at what's going on over there.
Part of this is you making all of these difficult decisions while you're still able, so it's easier for your family. Then that's the important thing. And the last thing that I include in this is a will and testament, last will and testament, and that's kind of a catch-all kind of a thing. If depending upon what you have for assets, a regular last will and testament will be fine. The thing to remember about a will is a letter to a judge. Okay, and the reason you need one is that if there's property in your name only, and you die, then that's a problem because there are only two people who can transfer property: the owner or a judge.
And then that's why it has to go to probate.
To probate, exactly.
Which is where you don't want it to have to go.
Yeah. So there are things that you can do, like if there's an insurance policy that has a named beneficiary, goes straight to the beneficiary.
Which is why life
keeps out of
insurance
probate.
is so critical.
Yes.
I know we haven't talked about, but I'm a licensed agent. I haven't sold any in a long time, and I'm a huge believer. It skips probate if
Yeah.
you've got a named beneficiary. And so you're not having to deal with any of the stuff. If you don't have it, then I don't care who you are, you're going to have to go before a judge. And there's a lot more than just standing before the judge and saying, my husband, my spouse died, or my wife died. There are a lot more things that you have to prove and bring to the court. It's not an easy process.
In fact, the word probate is from the Latin prove, to prove.
Prove, to prove.
In Spanish, probar. Probate, to prove.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what it's about, because you have this letter to the judge saying, Judge, I'm not here. Please do this for me.
Right.
And the judge looks at it and goes, yeah, it's filled out, so we're going to do that.
So before, I want to make sure, are you guys still seeing us as sideways? Check yours.
Probably.
And if not, if so, I'm just going to move it really quick because we've got time. And I want to make sure that it's so funny. I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, we're still sideways.
Okay, so we're gonna do something really quick. All right, so talk to them about the best way to get those things accomplished.
Okay.
And you might be flipped a little bit for a
That's
second.
fine. Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I do, and
Here's Eric.
there we go. Let's see here. It might take a second, but one of. Okay, yeah, we're moving there.
Are you moving?
Yes, it is. Okay, now.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna. That's that's probably
Keep
about
talking.
it.
Keep talking. You're
Okay.
You're on mic.
To have the big talk and to get this stuff done while is I put together what's called an elder law legal document portfolio. It says video interrupted now. Oh, no, there it goes. And it's looking right at you. How did that? Oh, no, okay.
Funny.
It's flipping around.
I've never heard it. Seen it happen before. That's what's
Okay.
great about this little show.
Well, as they say, we'll take care of it in post.
Yes. I love it.
See, broadcast interrupted. That happened once.
It's here.
Okay.
I still see it.
All right. So I have a package of stuff: a will, a durable power of attorney, a regular power of attorney, a designation of healthcare surrogate, and the healthcare advance directives. And what I charge to put that together is $275 for an individual and $450 for a couple. And I can tell you right now that is thousands of dollars less than you're going to pay anywhere else.
But that's what you put together. So your
Yes.
recommendation obviously is, hey Jackie, thanks for joining. Tell me if we're sideways still. It looks sideways on my phone or my computer, and we can't figure out why. So your suggestion obviously is this is not a go to Office Max, do it yourself, last will and testament scenario. You really need to get with a professional. Because every situation is different.
Right, and a lot of what I do is because these have to be signed by the person giving the authority. In other words, the elderly mother, the elderly father. I kind of have to make a determination if they can actually sign it. So when I'm sitting there, I'm asking them
Interesting.
questions. I'm making sure they know who's in the room, that they understand why they're there, and they understand why they're signing. It's okay that they have trouble signing because people have physical problems.
But it's the cognizance of it, or
It's the cognizance of it. That's right. And yeah, fine. And you can probably go and find these documents someplace and get them signed. But if they're signed at a time in which everyone else in the family knows that the person probably shouldn't be signing documents, and then someone could contest and question it.
All right, we're still sideways, which is good. That was one of my favorite movies. There's not enough wine, maybe that's why. It's so funny, you guys, because we actually are looking at us filming, and the only thing that's sideways are your comments, except we're looking on Facebook.
That is interesting.
It's never happened, but then again, that's why this $4.99 budget, Eric, is the way it is.
Yeah.
Charnel's probably over there. She hasn't probably looked. She's probably dying. So, but your vocal part of this is so critical, so let's continue to talk about
Yeah.
that. We're already at almost 30 minutes, so we've got a couple of minutes to wrap it up. But
And here's another thing. I didn't bring the brochure. I prepared all these great little visuals, and then I was told, no, the image is going to be reversed.
well, yeah.
So, look,
and now it's going to be reversed and sideways.
And sideways. Look at that. That's crazy. So anyway, another thing that I do is I'm probably one of the few guys in town, few attorneys in town that will give free consultations. I've always done it. And so basically, if you call my office and you ask for a free consultation, if you have a question about anything, what we've been talking about, if I'm not in with someone, I'll jump on the phone. If I am in with someone, or I'm in court or something, then my assistant will set you up a phone appointment. That way I can answer your questions. If it's something I can resolve quickly, great, no problem.
Well, the consulting part is so important, and if you get a free consultation, I think that's what people are afraid of. That's why I think they go to the Office Max or go online, because they think it's going to be an arm and a leg.
Right.
In reality, what they don't understand, kind of like trying to do anything, sell a house, right? Althea says, you're not sideways, you're just lying down.
Yeah, so if you do come into my office, just to make sure
Althea.
that you recognize me, I'll tip over a bit.
He'll totally tip over.
Yeah.
God, you gotta love the charm of this insanity right here. But we will post Eric's website and email address, or both, or one or the other, so that you can reach out to them. What do you want to leave them with? Because we are at 31, believe it or not, it goes by fast.
Yeah.
And we talked about some amazing stuff, things that I think people need to hear. They just don't want to. So
yeah.
What's the easiest way? What's the one thing that you say, all right, everybody's healthy right now.
Everyone's healthy right now, and everybody knows a family member or a friend that had this problem, that got sick quick, that didn't get documents signed, and it was a big mess.
Yes.
So you talk to mom and dad. Mom and dad, pass me the stuffing while we're sitting here at the table. And do you remember what happened with Aunt Sally? I really don't want that to happen to you.
Right.
I want to make sure that you have control over everything you want to have control over, and it's all in writing, and that way there's no problem. It's a lot easier on the family, and it's a lot less stress. If you and another thing, there's nothing that causes stress and fighting among family members is to have ambiguity in this stuff.
Correct.
That's
if
the worst part.
Any gray area, somebody's going to find a way to disagree, and you don't think that's going to happen. You believe that your family's cohesive, but I promise you that they are not, and that you're going to have to fight someone on something, on one issue, and it might be a small issue, but it could turn into a big issue. And so having the directives and everything done up front is so critical.
Yeah, and sometimes, actually, let me step back. Sometimes it's best not to have this talk with everyone in the room, because then it becomes a committee.
Correct.
Maybe you go and you talk to mom or you talk to dad on the side and say, this is really something that we ought to start thinking about, and bring it on slowly.
So we'll put Eric's website on the post. Thank you guys for putting up with the sideways. You can't see me, but you can see him, and I like that. You can't see me drinking my wine either, so that's good. Just one more thing. When you're a one-man show, and God bless Charnel, she's probably dying over there because she probably hasn't seen how we went sideways.
Yeah, this goes on the blooper reel for sure.
I love the blooper reel, and we're going to call this the Sideways Show. Thank you. I think that information is so important. I don't care what age you're at. It's so important to have the conversation while everybody is in a good place, mentally, health-wise, and have the conversation and plan.
Right, that's it, planning.
It's all about planning. You were awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It went by so fast.
Yeah, I know it. It really does.
Thank you guys for putting up with Sideways. Thank you for your comments before we went sideways. Appreciate all of you. Love and support is awesome. And I will see you tomorrow. Don't think I can correct the sideways, so it's going to be fun. But thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate you guys. Now, he's Mike, so I have to get up and do the
I'm
finish
tied
line.
down. As long as they keep on bringing me stuff, that's
I'm going
fine.
to bring you stuff.